Violent protests on streets of London. Park thugs clash with the cops. That's what we're being told, that the protests were outside the Indian mission. Pro-Pakistani protests were held across London as India celebrated its 73rd Independence Day. But the protests turned violent, with the cops having to fire tear gas shells. To our National Affairs editor, Srinjoy Chaudhary, who joins us with more information. Srinjoy, we are being told that the Scotland Yard said that it made 4 arrests as thousands of the protesters who gathered outside the Indian High Commission in London were protesting. There was an extremely tense face-off between the different groups who were a part of this pro-Pakistan protest.
Well, they were a little more successful in London than they were anywhere in the United States. In America, for instance, in Washington, in New York, in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Houston, in San Francisco, they were not successful at all. Primarily because large numbers of Indians, NRIs, gathered outside the missions and did not give space to any Pakistanis or people supporting Khalistan. In London, the story is a little different. Some of them managed to gather outside the Indian High Commission. There were protests. And as usual, as you would expect, this is very clearly, as we are hearing from the Indian side, very, very clearly supported by the ISI, masterminded by the ISI. And the idea was to create an impression. But that has backfired. Because if you are going to have a demonstration, if it were peaceful, it would be understandable. Right. Once it turns violent, then very clearly people see through this. And people know what has actually happened. And people also know what is happening in Pakistan.
Absolutely.
So there are
absolutely, but then these attempts, of course, were foiled by the authorities there in London. Thank you very much, Srinjoy, for joining us with those details.